We've talked a little bit about how Trump's handling of the Epstein situation, the Epstein controversy, one might say, it might actually spell the downfall of MAGA. Not because it's not obvious and not because it's not stupid, but because it's one of the few issues that Trump can't really navigate while attempting to look like the main character. You know? So, for example, Donald Trump just yesterday announced that he was unleashing a federal probe to investigate wrongdoing on the part of Democrats named in the Epstein emails. Essentially, every time reporters go up to Donald Trump and say, "Hey, what about these emails?" his response is, take a look at take a look at Bill Clinton, take a look at everyone else, not me, not me." Essentially, that's the gist of it. I mean, here, just it's pathetic and desperate, and I don't think his base is really buying it either.
Attorney General Pam Bondi has chosen a prosecutor to investigate people and companies associated with Jeffrey Epstein, quickly obeying a public request from President Donald Trump. Bondi writes this, quote, "Thank you, Mr. President. SDNY U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton is one of the most capable and trusted prosecutors in the country, and I have asked him to take the lead," end quote. That in direct response to this announcement from President Trump, which came less than 4 hours before. The president wrote this, quote, "I will be asking AG Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice, together with our great patriots at the FBI, to investigate Jeffrey Epstein's involvement and relationship with Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, J.P. Morgan Chase, and many other people and institutions." And
for one, this comes across as desperate, obviously, because if Trump was actually interested in investigating people's relationship to Epstein, why now, at the exact moment you would do it to deflect? And also, why oppose the release of the Epstein files? Trump's aware of the fact the Epstein files are almost certainly going to be released, or at the very least, the House is going to vote on their release, including a number of Republicans, and he's trying to preempt it desperately. I mean, he could have headed this off months ago, but at the end of the day, the way things are setting up, there's a non-zero possibility of him needing to veto the release of the Epstein files, which, Jesus Christ, right? Like, God, the optics. Oh my God. So nobody's really buying this. It's also kind of a faux pas, because the whole point of being implicated in the Jeffrey Epstein business is that the people who are implicated aren't supposed to rat on other people who are implicated. You get me? Like, the whole deal with Epstein is that if you went over to Little St. James and or whatever, there was an implicit, I assume sometimes explicit, understanding that if you went to the police about it, you would just die. You would be killed, What else would be the point of the whole thing? What's the point of operating a gigantic, like, trafficking / smuggling / blackmail network if there aren't consequences to, you want to ensure a kind of mutually assured destruction. That's the whole point. Well, otherwise, what would you... Now, Epstein's not around anymore, but Trump just like randomly tossing out players is probably not going to lead to anything. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if within the FBI they're just writing these orders off immediately. I mean, what are they supposed to do with them? Actually start investigating the whole Epstein crisis, unwinding that knot? That would just come back to Trump. There's no way around it. What are they going to do? Get every single investigator and every single prosecutor involved in it? To like selectively curate the information that they obtain? Nothing works this way. It's not possible. Nothing is going to happen here. It's just a last second attempt to deflect. Notably, these aren't even charges being directed, okay? This is Trump directing Bondi, directing the FBI to investigate. Or in other words, they've passed the buck like 3 times down. Shit ain't happening. Now, with that being said, there is a more immediate, more impressing, or more pressing social consequence. Donald Trump has officially unendorsed Marjorie Taylor Greene, his loudest sycophant. "I am withdrawing my support and endorsement of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of the great state of Georgia. Over the past few weeks, despite my creating record achievements for our country, including a total and complete victory on the shutdown, closed borders, low taxes, no men and women's sports or transgender for everyone, ending DEI, stopping Biden's record-setting inflation, biggest regulation cuts in history, stopping 8 wars, rebuilding our military, being respected by every country in the world as opposed to being the laughingstock that we were just 12 months ago, having trillions of dollars record-setting, invest in the USA, having created the hottest country anywhere in the world from being a dead country 12 months ago. All I see wacky Marjorie do is complain, complain, complain. It seemed to all begin when I sent her a poll stating she could not run for senator or governor. She was at 12%. She didn't have a chance, unless, of course, she had my endorsement, which she wasn't about to get. She has told many people she is upset I don't return her phone calls anymore, but with 219 congressmen / women, 53 U.S. senators, 24 cabinet members, almost 200 countries, and an otherwise normal life to lead, I can't take a ranting lunatic's call every day. I understand that wonderful conservative people are thinking about primarying Marjorie in her district of Georgia, that they too are fed up with her and her antics, and if the right person runs, they will have my complete and unyielding support. She has gone far left, even doing The View with their low IQ Republican hating anchors. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. I am not joking. I think this might actually be the end of MAGA. Marjorie Taylor Greene was Trump's biggest sycophant and like a hardliner for him, even when it was politically difficult for her. And if Donald Trump is willing to get rid of even people like this over the Epstein business. Look, most Republicans think that Donald Trump is mishandling the Epstein business, okay? That's not exactly a minority opinion within the party. If he's acting like this over, what I would say are pretty moderate disagreement within the party, you're basically carving out a position where it is impossible to disagree with you on anything at any point. I've said this multiple times, and I'll keep saying it. Donald Trump can only reign as he has if he has undying loyalty from the Republican Party. The moment there's infighting within the party, all of this falls apart. And it seems like, to a large extent, all the excuses that his base has had for why he hasn't made America good have fallen apart. In the first presidential term, it was because neocons were impeding all of his agenda items. But now that nobody's impeding him, he's the one doing everything. He has basically unlimited power. He's been able to do whatever he wants, regardless of the law, regardless of the Constitution. And what's happened? Nothing. Most people remember from the past year are tariff debacles, whiplashing back and forth, and the Epstein business. That's what people remember. Everything's gotten more expensive. Nobody's happy with where the economy is right now. If anything, things are more unstable than ever, right? Even in recent memory. I mean, most people around remember COVID pretty well. I would say that that's probably the closest memory they have to this degree of economic instability. Except there is no pandemic this time. It's just Trump. And there's no excuse. There aren't any neocons impeding his agenda that he can, point at. Marjorie Taylor Greene has responded, and I genuinely think she's going to win out in the PR war here. I know I don't really know or care about, like, I'm not really that invested in her turnabout arc. I think that for a while now there have been sharks circling Trump, waiting for the sign that he's going to break, And after the 2024 election, a bunch of Republicans were like, fuck, I guess we're with him for a while now. They probably assumed Kamala Harris was going to win, and if she did, they could tear Trump apart. If Trump had lost in 2024, the Republicans would have torn him apart. Within a year, they would have had like a new group of headliners. They know perfectly what, like, the Republican Party isn't going to attach themselves to a dying ship forever. They're not going to sink with the ship forever. They know that past a point they're going to have to move on. But after Trump won in 2024, they're stuck with him. They're stuck with him for another 4 years. But if this is how things are going down, and a lot of Republicans look like they're going to be defecting on the Epstein vote anyway, they're looking for an out, From Marjorie Taylor Greene. Trump just attacked me and lied about me. I haven't called him at all, but I did send these text messages today. Look at a second. Apparently, this is what sent him over the edge. The Epstein files. Texting DJT. I wonder who that is. Check the flight logs of Epstein's plane. Bill Clinton is on there like 26 times. Hillary too. For many of us, releasing the Epstein files has always been for the women who are victims of Epstein, but also because we believe Democrat bad guys like the Clintons were entangled and involved with him. Epstein was the spider that wove the web of the deep state. Lean into it. The Jeffrey Epstein hoax. In every single interview I've done to defend President Trump, I said over and over the women say he did nothing wrong and their attorney says he's the only one who helped, and the Democrats had 4 years to release the files but did nothing. Stop ignoring the women. He texts like that? No, this is, wait, Natalie, who's Natalie H? One of his handlers, right? Stop ignoring the women. Many of them literally voted for President Trump and said so publicly. Them being raped as teenagers is not a hoax. Natalie Hitler. Natalie Hitler. Thank you. Yes. One of the handlers, she writes his tweets and stuff. So Trump didn't reply to this? Deputy Communications Director. Thank you. You can really tell from the way that Marjorie Taylor Greene is framing this that she's trying to like this is the nicest possible way that you could appeal to Donald Trump on this, you know? Like there's basically no way you can interpret Trump's response to something like this as anything other than an acknowledgement that he's in the files and he's aware of the fact that it would sink him even more than he's already been sunk, you know? How else do you interpret this if he's responding negatively to this? She implied Israel is the reason he's so protective about the Epstein files. Good. This is exactly the kind of incoherent, lunatic, psycho, vaguely anti-Semitic shit that she's always been known for, but now it's being directed against the president. I'm telling you guys, the future of the MAGA movement, if there is a MAGA movement, the future of the Republican Party is deeply anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, lunatic populist. Not just Trump-aligned populist, but like lunatic populist. And like militantly white nationalist, right? And Trump keeps getting in the way of that because Trump is not nasty enough to Israel. Trump is also not really a white nationalist. He's racist, but he's not like, you know, ideologically Nazi. This is the direction the party's headed in. You know, you've got lots and lots and lots of young Republicans who are leaning in on this direction. There's no future for being positive about Israel. There's no future for being blasé about the Epstein files. You get me? Anyway. And of course, he's coming after me hard to make an example to scare all the other Republicans before next week's vote to release the Epstein files. It's astonishing, really, how hard he's fighting to stop the files from coming out. Now, that actually goes to this level. Really, most Americans wish he'd fight this hard to help forgotten men and women of America who are fed up with foreign wars and foreign causes and are going broke trying to feed their families, are losing hope of ever achieving the American dream. That's what I voted for. I've supported Trump with too much of my precious time, too much of my own money, and fought harder for him even when all the other Republicans turned their backs and denounced him. I don't worship or serve Donald Trump. I worship God. Jesus is my savior. District Georgia 14 and the American people. Yeah. Right. Incredible stuff, truly. But you do understand how this is a dynamic that favors her, right? Again, it's main character syndrome stuff. It's main character syndrome stuff. There is no main character status in trying to hide the Epstein files. That makes you the antagonist. Spit that shit, white trash crane? Yeah. Unfortunately, the Democrats right now are set up to lose to people like Marjorie Taylor Greene in 2028 unless they shift very anti-Israel, you know? Basically, the future of this country politically is tied up in populism and being anti-Israel. There's really no... Like, Marjorie Taylor Greene as a presidential candidate would probably win over like Pete Buttigieg in 2028. She doubled down, lol. Yeah, because she's anti H-1B visa, whereas Trump has been pro H-1B visa. Again, all of the stuff that Marjorie Taylor Greene is fighting over Trump with right now is about her being a better populist, more anti-Israel, more white supremacist, more pro-American, you know, more release the Epstein files. They all fall along the same lines. But how does MAGA win a fight against that? You know, becoming the deep state? Rhetorically, it just doesn't work. I'm voting no on the Epstein hoax. The ratio in this post should serve as the ultimate warning to all my Republican colleagues. You vote no on Tuesday to release the Epstein files and face severe outrage from America. If she moves, she could be a senator? Yeah, she secured her position pretty well. Look at all this, man. Good morning. I want to thank everyone who texted and posted and commented support for me. You're all so kind, and I appreciate love and support you too. I never thought fighting to release the Epstein files, defending women who were victims of rape, and fighting to expose the web of rich, powerful elites would have caused this, but here we are, and it speaks for itself. There needs to be a new way forward. Again, I don't think she's being authentic here. Like, everyone already knew Trump was an Epstein-associated rapist. You'd have to be so deep in the sauce to not believe that. Though, honestly, she's so stupid, she might still be in that. You know, it's kind of hard to say. I don't really know. Who knows? It's irrelevant either way. Like, this isn't about being anti-rape. Republicans are all pro-rape and pro-pedophilia. She's just rebranding, and I think she's doing so at a very smart time. I'm now being contacted by private security firms with warnings for my safety as a hotbed of threats against me are being fueled and egged on by the most powerful man in the world, the man I supported and helped get elected. Look, I'm really in favor of her, like, driving the knife and twisting into the MAGA movement. However, and I mean this very seriously, Democrats are going to have a really, really tough time beating this. unless they shape the fuck up. Really tough time, you know? The resurgent power of a hyper-populist right, stupider even than the MAGA coalition, that turned on MAGA for not being populist enough, that's the real death cult. We've been saved many times over by the fact that Donald Trump is not anywhere near as far right as his base is. That he's mostly just, you know, self-centered, narcissistic, megalomaniacal, but not, you know, a white nationalist. You do not want a national figurehead who is as crazy as the people who advocate for him. You know, you do not want a fucking Groyper president. She's piling it on. I now have a small understanding of the fear and pressure the women who are victims of Epstein and his cabal must feel. As a Republican who overwhelmingly votes for President Trump's bills and agenda, his aggression against me, which also fuels the venomous nature of his radical internet trolls, many of whom are paid, this is completely shocking to everyone. My phone is blowing up with constant amazing support. I'm so thankful. The political industrial complex and the violent, toxic nature of American politics must end. Oh, I don't know. The Epstein vote's going to be fucking crazy, man. It's going to be really, 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 really crazy. Smart of her to connect her intimidation to the Epstein victims? Yeah, genuinely. I wonder if, considering how odious her reputation has been in the past, it makes me wonder if this is, like, enough to re-legitimize her. What is this? Oh my god, Laura Loomer's new surgery? Laura Loomer's new surgery? Oh my fucking god. I'm so sorry. This is like... This has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Refugees even.
Is this not, like, face edited? She jawbogs me. That's why I keep the beard on. This has to be edited. There's no way. I don't believe this is real. I don't believe this is real. It can't be. As funny as that would be. She looks like Buzz Lightyear. I opened the link up and it was shocking. Absolutely shocking.
Breaking up turns out not so hard to do. President Trump has declared he is officially pulling his endorsement of MAGA firebrand Marjorie Taylor Greene. The Georgia Congresswoman has been demanding the release of the Epstein files and has criticized the president for spending too much time abroad. The president, well, has apparently heard enough, posting on Truth Social overnight that all wacky Marjorie Taylor Greene does is complain, complain, complain.
I think that her constituents aren't going to be happy. Already, I have people calling me. They want to challenge her to a race in her district in Georgia. And, you know, that's too bad. She's lost a wonderful conservative reputation. But when she says, don't go overseas, if I didn't go overseas, we might be in a war right now with China.
Meanwhile, President Trump is also...
Seriously, like, again, this is a saving grace, right? The MAGA line, hyper-nationalists, no more foreign wars, no H-1B visas, etc., etc. Like, obviously, Trump doesn't give a shit about any of this. Trump can't be an isolationist because it would deny him the ability to try to aura farm with other countries. Trump likes being praised by the Saudis too much to actually be an isolationist, you know? I kind of shudder at the idea of a Republican Party that's insane enough to deliver on these promises. It would not be good for anyone.
That with Congressman Thomas Massie, who also wants the Epstein files released. A Trump-aligned super PAC is spending $1 million on ads targeting the Kentucky Republican. Massie says his...
Oh, yeah, by the way, Donald Trump engaged in what we call a stellar play. He ulted the other day and said Thomas Massie's wife must be laughing at what a loser he is. Didn't his wife just die? Like, recently? Like last year? So Thomas Massie might be double voting yes on the release of the Epstein files. Oh yeah, here we go. Thank you. Did Thomas Massie, sometimes referred to as Rand Paul Jr. because of the fact he always votes against the Republican Party, get married already? Boy, that was quick. No wonder the polls have him at less than 8% chance of winning the election. Anyway, have a great life, Thomas, in question mark. His wife will soon find out she's stuck with a loser. Bro's gonna show up with 70 alts. Thomas Massie with the, you know, suspiciously 200 no votes on releasing the Epstein files, shaped bulge in his belly.
Constituents understand his position.
When they're protecting pedophiles, when they are blowing our budget, when they are starting wars overseas, I'm sorry.
Definitely makes the president look good, by the way, that all of his political energy right now is being directed towards attacking members of his own party over the Epstein files, you know? Yes, and Massie just remarried. Trump mocked Massie for moving on too fast. Oh, I see. Yeah, he's gonna bring in 73 yes votes.
I can't go along with that. And back home, people agree with
Can
me.
Democrats please attack too? Nah, because they're huge pussies. So again, like it's fucking insane. But like, you take a look at Democrat media, and for the most part, like, just crickets. Some Democrats are attacking Trump over this, but.
They understand, even the most ardent Trump supporters understand.
And President Trump has now ordered the Justice Department to investigate companies and Democrats who he claims had dealings with Jeffrey Epstein. And Attorney General Pam Bondi was quick to oblige, appointing the U.S. Attorney in Manhattan to handle that probe. Even though 4 months ago, the DOJ determined nothing in the Epstein files warranted further investigation. This week, the president's name turned up repeatedly in just released emails from the Epstein estate.
What did Jeffrey Epstein mean in his emails when he said you knew about the girls?
I know nothing about that. They would have announced that a long time ago.
A lot of moving parts on this story. We get more now from CNN senior justice correspondent Evan Perez.
Good morning, Danny. Attorney General Pam Bondi says that federal prosecutors in New York are being tasked to launch yet another investigation of people associated with child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. This new investigation comes after President Donald Trump said that he was asking Bondi to investigate Epstein's ties to prominent Democrats. He named specific names, including former President Bill Clinton. Now, it's yet an extraordinary turn in a political mess that has consumed this White House for months. And it comes just days after Democrats had released emails from the late Epstein estate that mentioned Trump many times. Trump announced the directive in social media that accusing the Democrats of trying to revive attention to his past ties with Epstein and contending that they are, quote, using the Epstein hoax involving Democrats, not Republicans, to try to deflect from their own disaster.
Did you see where DJT stated that H-1B visa folks were more talented than Americans? Many folks are pissed off about that. Yeah, because Trump's a businessman and he likes cheap foreign labor, you know? The problem with the H-1B visas isn't that American workers are being replaced. I've met Americans. They're retarded. They probably deserve it, okay? The problem is that it means the H-1B visa workers are like work slaves, because if they get fired from their job, they also lose their fucking housing and get deported back to their home country, you know? So fixing that problem would also reduce the incentive to get H-1B workers, because the main reason corporations like to import them is because they like having work slaves, you know? Just get them on green cards or whatever.
Shut down and all of their other failures. Bondi responded to the president's social media post by thanking the president and saying that she'd have U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton in Manhattan lead this new investigation. This is the same office that led the earlier investigations of Epstein and of Ghislaine Maxwell, who worked for Epstein and was convicted of charges that she aided in the trafficking of girls. We should note that
H-1Bs are a wage suppression method. Yeah, look, I have nothing principally against them. The way they're, like everything else in the economy, man, it's not a principal opposition to them. They are weaponized by corporations in a way that is socially harmful. You know, there are a million things that are like that. It's not specific to that. To H-1B visas.
The Justice Department this summer did an assessment of documents that's in their possession, and they determined that there were no additional defendants that could be charged in crimes associated with Epstein. And this new investigation also means, though, that Congress will likely have to wait much longer for any documents to be released, because there's an effort right now gaining steam in the House to force the release of those documents. But during an ongoing investigation, the Justice Department...
God, remember this shit? When Trump must have been so disgruntled back at this point when the Epstein stuff hadn't really come to head, when people underneath him were aura farming over the release of the Epstein files that he knew fully well would never be released. Just giving them the empty, but you can literally see they're empty. The empty binders full of extremely classified information. Epstein files, phase 1. Incredible shit, man. Have you seen Megyn Kelly defend pedophilia? Yes, I did a video on it last stream.
Generally doesn't release investigative files out of concern that it would harm any possible prosecutions. Danny?
All right, Evan Bettis, thank you very much for that reporting. For more on this, let's discuss the Epstein case and where it all may be headed with Stephen Newcomb. He's a congressional reporter for Axios. Stephen, thanks so much for waking up early to talk about a lot of developing things that happened overnight. Let's start here. This breakup between President Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Trump calling Greene a lunatic. It's all about Epstein, of course. What do you make of this?
I feel like I recognize this guy.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me. It certainly is about Epstein, but I actually think that the break between the president and Congresswoman Greene at this point is about more than just the Epstein files. I mean, if you go back to the middle of the shutdown, she was criticizing the president and Republicans for not having a plan to end the shutdown, for House Republicans not being in Washington.
He looks like somebody
not
named
having
Noah.
a health care plan to sort of counter what Democrats were proposing. So it's sort of all encompassing. But yeah, the breakup, it seems like this weekend has reached a new fever pitch, and Congresswoman Greene seems not to be in the good graces of President Trump anymore.
No, and that's well said. It really does feel like it's been a slow burn, certainly over the course of the shutdown, as you noted. What's interesting, Stephen, is we've seen this pressure campaign, though, ramp up this past week against Republicans who are supportive of
Xander Hall? He does look a little bit like Xander, that's true.
of releasing the Epstein
Wendigoon
files.
even?
We think of
Yeah, I
Lauren
don't
Boebert,
know.
of course,
Maybe
Marjorie
this
Taylor
guy
Greene.
just has a very,
Greene said in her tweet last night, quote, "And of course he's coming after me. Hard to make another example to scare all the other Republicans before next week's vote to release the Epstein files. He's coming after me hard." That's what she's saying. Forgive me there. I guess my question to you, Stephen, is do you think this will scare any Republicans who are thinking about voting to release the Epstein files? Do you think this will scare them off from that vote next week?
It at least
I think it's going to do the opposite. Trump, like, obviously crashing out and abandoning some of his closest allies and loudest sycophants in a desperate effort to control the narrative makes him look really bad to his own party, you know? That doesn't look good. It does show weakness, 100%. It does show weakness, yeah.
has not, at this point, it did not scare them from taking their names off the signature list of the discharge petition, which they needed to sort of circumvent House Republican leadership and Speaker Mike Johnson to get this to the floor. So we'll have to see next week if there is any change in the posture. But at least when the president was sort of making these calls, and in some cases even bringing, Congresswoman Boebert to the White House last week, it did not get them to take their names off of that discharge petition. And now that Congresswoman Grijalva, who was sworn in last week, signed on to that petition, those signatures are frozen. There's nothing that the president or House Republican leadership can do.
Mike Johnson might get ousted from this. Mike Johnson is the only House leader that could have managed Republicans under Trump, but his authority falls apart the moment the MAGA coalition does. Like, Senator Majority Leader Thune will survive Trump's fall, but Mike Johnson cannot. He's been too much of a sniveling little liar for the president. You know what I mean? He's been too much of a, massage everything over to get anything Trump wants done. Anything Trump says goes. But if people start turning on Trump, and we know, by the way, the moment there's a hint of a rebellion within the Republican Party, like people start really pushing back against Trump publicly, it's all going to fall apart very, very, very quickly. Trump is way too thin-skinned, too much of an ego. He's going to freak the fuck out. And there's going to be a civil war between Republicans who are fed up of his shit and Republicans who haven't been paying attention and think that Trump is the guiding light of the country and the only way to save the country is with Trump. And thank you so much. You're so beautiful. Coffee. And so on and so on. MTG and Massie aren't going anywhere. No, their stocks are going up right now.
To get them to take their names off or stop a vote from happening. So now you're sort of at the point where, you're trying to whip no votes from Republicans, and we'll have to see if the president and the speaker.
Vance and Johnson are done too for their level of complicity. I think it probably fucks Vance quite a bit that he was this, internet alt-right groiper epic-based heckin' Tutorino fucking white nationalist guy, and then he just stood there and watched as Donald Trump said shit like, we need H-1B workers because there aren't good enough American workers, or you know, him backtracking on a bunch of immigration related stuff or whatever. Vance has been compromised by his adjacency to the president. It definitely doesn't help that Vance was literally like a Democrat up until 2016 and only became Catholic when it was time to run as Republican. There's so much about him that reeks as inauthentic, and I feel like it just piles up, you know? It piles up.
Are able to get any more Republicans on their side.
Last question for you, Stephen,
Indian
on
wife,
the
yeah.
Epstein story in particular. It seems like President Trump now going on the offense with this story, telling the DOJ to investigate Epstein's ties to other high-profile figures and Democrats. Isn't that just going to keep this subject in the news?
Certainly, and I think you've even heard, you know, some reporting this week that there's Republicans who have told the president that he's getting bad advice on the Epstein sort of saga, and yeah, this is going to prolong it. I do think
he's not getting bad advice. He personally doesn't want to release the files. You can tell there is a difference between when Trump personally wants or doesn't want something versus when he's just being a sound piece for another person. He's been very, very consistent on this for a year now. Every single time it comes up, he calls it a hoax. He blames everyone else for focusing on it. It's not direction that he's receiving. He personally doesn't want the files to come out. I doubt he even knows what's in the files. Why would Trump know what's in the big block of stuff the FBI collected? He doesn't have access to that information. And even if he did, what is he going to do? Personally verify it? He probably can't even use a computer. He doesn't know what the fuck are in the files. He knows for a fact there's probably a bunch of incriminating evidence on him out there and assumes that it's in the files, but I doubt he knows what the files are, how large they are, what they contain.
that, you know, it being an active investigation and not being able to release records because it's an active investigation is probably a feature and not a bug of this strategy. But yeah, the pressure campaign is going to continue to go on, and even if it gets through the House and the House passes it, that pressure campaign is just going to move to the Senate to put pressure on Senate Republicans, and particularly Senate Majority Leader John Thune to put.
Was it worth opening government for this vote? This vote would have happened when the government reopened, no matter what. I think it would have, by the way, I think all of this would have been happening anyway, but much worse if the government had eventually been forced to reopen because of Trump. If they had eventually capitulated on this, you know, because then this vote would have happened in the wake of a massive backtracking from Trump. It would have been like compounding signs of weakness. No, it wouldn't. There was a deadline for the petition. Well, they could reissue it. But wait, what was the deadline?
Bill on the floor in the Senate if it ends up passing the House.
All right. Well, before we go, I also want to make sure to ask you about healthcare and the shutdown. Meanwhile, the shutdown ending.
Jay Schlatt. That's who I was thinking he looks like. Thank you. I was thinking Noah Smith, but Noah Smith's that Zionist kid actor, right? Jay Schlatt. That's what I was thinking.
Feeling like a million years ago now. Senate Democrats said they got Senate Republicans to promise a vote on health care, on these Affordable Care Act credits. Are we going to see Democrats continue to put pressure on Republicans, though, to keep this promise?
Oh, Noah Schnapp is the actor, is it? I don't know.
Well, certainly, and I think the first thing that they need to do is
Stranger Things.
Negotiate amongst each other about what that product looks like next month that they get a vote on the Senate floor. We reported last night that those conversations will include Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Senator Ron Wyden, who is the top Democrat on the Senate Finance Committee, including some of the Democrats, the moderate Democrats that were involved in negotiations to reopen the government with Republican leaders earlier this month. So, you know, they need to put together a package that they can get support, not just from their entire caucus, but, you know, they need the 13, 14 Republican votes that it's going to take to pass this through the Senate in December. So they need to also start.
Where do you see this going for Trump? Genuinely, no idea. We're in the cool zone of American history. I don't think anyone has a clear read on what's going to happen with this one. You know, it at the end of the day, it comes down to the Republican desire to have a Genghis Khan like figure unite their barbaric tribes versus Republicans innate love for pedophilia versus their frustration that the con has not been providing main character energy lately. It's a whole lot. Don't you think Pam reopened the investigation so the files can't be released due to the investigation itself? No, they're unrelated. Whatever the Epstein files are, they're not being referenced in the ongoing investigation. What happens if Republicans double down on Trump? Then his popularity keeps falling. Then they can't get anything done anymore. There are already holes in their coalition. People like Massie and Ryan, Rand, people like Marjorie, Taylor-Greene. His popularity is already underwater on basically every issue. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse over time. The government continues to stall out. I don't see this going good for them. Like, under any circumstances. It seems like it's pretty much guaranteed it goes poorly for them. It's really just a matter of how quickly and to what extent. Possible move to impeach? Nah, and who gives a fuck, man? So what, Vance becomes president? I don't give a shit about impeaching Trump. Who cares? Third time's the try. Or third try is the charm. I don't know. I don't care. You think Trump would resign on his own? No. I don't want him to resign. What does his resignation look like, you know? A rehabilitation party by Democrats for the Republicans? Oh, Republicans are... Finally, the Republican Party is back to its old self. They're good again. Now that Trump is gone, I don't know. Unfortunately, my desire for things to move forward is kind of contingent on my hope for the Democrats reaching a point where they can actually improve the country. If Trump is gotten rid of now, like if he's removed or quits or is impeached or whatever, you know, who's going to save the country? Like, what's going to fix the country afterwards? Kamala Harris? What comes next? We need a good follow-up. It's not enough just to get rid of Trump. We need a good follow-up. Otherwise, you're going to get some, piece of shit, dickless governance that's going to accomplish nothing, and it goes right back to the Republicans. Marjorie Taylor Greene wins in 2032, you know? She's got time. She's young. I forgot Biden was alive, lol. Yeah, we could bring him back. What if we run Mamdani? I think it's fucking pathetic that the only guy that feels like he's got some energy on the Democrats, or on the Democratic side, is a guy who, for all of America, only began existing the beginning of the year. You know? It really sucks that he can't be president. No, it shouldn't matter, man, because there isn't just one Mamdani. There are hundreds of thousands of people in America who could be Mamdani. The Democratic Party is the problem. We were all Mamdani. I thought you said the country was on a death spiral and that any good president would just be a small diversion. That sounds like a wildly simplistic and reductive reading of something that I might have said in the past. You did say that? Then there's missing context. I would not have said that with no other information. What I might have said is that having a person like Pete Buttigieg or Gavin Newsom be a reprieve from Republican governance would do nothing to secure our country out of the death spiral. What you need is a broader coalition within the Democratic Party, both in Congress and in the presidency, in order to start addressing the fundamental problems. I think that sounds a little bit more like something that I would say. No, you even said if we had another FDR, it would only delay the end. I think you're lying. I would never say that a country's fate is predetermined. That's ridiculous. I remember it now. You said Kamala being the president would have just kicked the can down the road. Yeah, because that's Kamala. Do you guys not understand the difference between any Democrat being president and the right Democrat being president? If we get a bad Democrat in office, like Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom or whatever, they're not going to do anything to improve these issues. They're not going to cement a legacy. They're not going to convince the American people that what they're offering is better than what the Republicans are offering. Literally no options apart from AOC. I don't think that AOC could do it. We understand, but the field's kind of empty of them right now. Then the field needs to open up. It's 3 years until the presidential election. 3 years. I'm pretty sure you said nothing would have changed much if Bernie had won 2016. Yeah, I don't think that with Congress being what it was, I don't think he could have gotten anything done, really. Like, 2016, having him as president certainly would have been preferable to having Trump as president. But, like, the powers that be would not have allowed him to do anything transformative enough, you know? It needs to be a broader momentum thing. The president on its own is not enough. There has to be a cultural change in the country. We call these material conditions. Yeah, you need a mandate. Chat totally forgets that in 2005, Obama wasn't even on the top 10 candidates for the 2008 primary. Yeah, and who were the top candidates for the 2016 primary back in 2013? Was Trump there? No, of course not. Guys, we're 3 years out from the presidency. And maybe we are stuck with somebody like Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom, in which case we all just have to suffer for a while longer. Sorry. Those presidential candidates, you might as well be throwing the ball over to the Republicans next time. Dem's gonna run NTG in 28. Who knows? Maybe she'd be better than Gavin Newsom.